Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV and a new edition of our online interview presentation series. Today, we want to talk to Keith Henderson, the CEO of Velocity Minerals. Hey, and a very nice and warm good morning or even good evening from my side to Canada. How are you doing, Keith?
I'm very good. Thank you. Good morning. Great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for taking the time. I know it's a busy week with Denver Gold and all those conferences going on, but yeah, fantastic that you are sharing with us some insight and thoughts for Velocity, as you had quite some good last, I would say, 6 to 12 months with a lot of success and good things to show. And I would say I start with the presentation, bring it up here, and I would say the floor is yours, and then we discuss.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much indeed. I'll just move through the cautionary statements and we'll get on to the first slide here. You know, for those that are not familiar with the company, we've been working here for 3.5 to 4 years. We're working on a hub and spoke development strategy. So basically, we're looking at gold exploration in Bulgaria. We're working with a partner in Bulgaria, a Bulgarian mining company. They have an existing CIL processing plant, which is a very critical strategic advantage for us. It's the only CIL plant in Bulgaria, and it means that all of the deposits that we're able to define in the future, we'll be able to move that ore, hopefully, from those deposits through to the central plant and to produce gold doré on site. So it's a pretty exciting project. We've got a lot of land. We've got a lot of exciting projects, which have got, some of them had historical resources originally. We've since been advancing those projects. And we've been moving those projects through resources, PEAs. Our flagship project has actually already been through a pre-feasibility study. So we're advancing quite nicely. We're defining resources that will potentially be feeding through to that plant.
And that plant would have enough capacity for all your projects, or let's say at least for a significant size to start?
Yeah, we think we can get to significant capacity. For example, the Rosno pre-feasibility study defines approximately 55 to 60,000 ounces of gold per year, and that accounts for about 1/4 of the capacity of the plant, assuming that in each case we're transporting a concentrate to the plant for processing, just as we plan to do at Rosno. So that means that ultimately if we can find enough resources to feed the plant, we can get over 200,000 ounces per year, and we think that's a pretty interesting scale for a company of our size. So Rosno has been the first step for us. We've been able to advance it very quickly. We've also, though, been looking at projects in the surrounding area. If we're going to develop a hub and spoke, we already have the hub, but we have to define multiple spokes to deliver the ore. So we've been looking at various projects and we've been moving those forward as well. Rosno, we hold in a 70-30 joint venture. Other projects, we have an option to acquire 70%, or in the case of our new Iglika project, we actually already own 100% of the project. So it's all about getting ownership of the projects, moving them forward, defining resources, and then seeing how this entire project looks together as a single project. We really think about this hub and spoke development strategy as a single project. It's not just about Rosno, it's about how everything fits together. Over the last few years, as we've moved through this process, we've attracted the attention of a couple of significant corporate shareholders. One of those is Artemis Gold. Artemis recently converted a convertible debenture, and they now hold, on an issued and outstanding basis, 32%. On a fully diluted basis, that's around 34%. And then last year in November, we had an additional corporate shareholder came to us, which was Dundee Precious Metals. Dundee are operating in Bulgaria. They operate the Ada Tepe deposit, which is located, as the crow flies, about 20 kilometers away from Rosno, so right in our backyard. And we think Dundee represent for us a pretty natural partner. They're operating in Bulgaria, so are we. We're after the same thing, which is gold. We're both moving projects forward, and Dundee are operating and mining at two mines in Bulgaria already. So they're a great partner with good expertise, and we look forward to them continuing to be shareholders and hopefully becoming a bigger shareholder in the future. This is just a graphic that shows the development strategy. So we have Rosno on the right-hand side, and we have exploration upside at Rosno, which is primarily what we're looking at this year. You know, we've already defined Rosno. We're looking at a number of projects sort of sitting within 3 to 4 kilometers of Rosno, where we believe that if we can find something there, that run-of-mine ore could be transported to the facilities that we're planning to build at Rosno. And what that means is you have a certain economic value attached to Rosno's pre-feasibility study as it stands today. If you add more run-of-mine material to that, you're adding more ounces without adding more capital, or not really, you're not adding more significant capital. So we think finding more resources within a few kilometers of Rosno will add a lot of value to the project. Abichnik and Macedonci are in the general same area as Rosno, and we've been advancing those. At Abichnik, just last month, we announced an initial resource of approximately 150,000 ounces at Abichnik, and we're continuing to explore there to build that up further. And then Iglika is something that we acquired last year. It's a super interesting project. It's got a lot of near-surface gold potential, but it also has some copper porphyry potential at depth. This project's located a little bit further away from the CIL plant, but it still fits completely, and it comports well with our strategy here. And if we can find near-surface gold at Iglika, we don't see any reason why that couldn't also be transported as a concentrate to the central plant as well.
Mm-hmm. So, as I'm reading here, 200,000 ounces per year. This is, let's say, the potential from the existing processing plant. So would that mean that like each of your 4 spokes, I would call it, is then producing around the 50,000 ounces, or is there something which is a little bit larger, a little bit smaller? And what would be like the development phasing? Let's say that you start with Rosno probably, then Obichnik maybe comes into the game, then Macedonci, and last but not least, Iglika?
So Rosno is the most advanced, obviously. It's a pre-feasibility study. We've got to the point of defining that 55 to 60,000 ounces per year is going to be the production rate. At Abichnik, we've just got to the resource stage. We're not yet at the point of having decided or defined what that resource will ultimately be or how much it's going to be producing every year. But broadly speaking, we're looking at Rosno plus 3 more comparable projects, and that's how we get to the 200,000 ounces. As to the specific size of each project, it's too early to say. Iglika is probably the one with the most potential, given that it's got potential for both near-surface gold and for larger bulk tonnage like copper porphyry potential as well. But time will tell. It's just a matter of getting through exploration. It's a matter of getting meters into the ground and answering all of these questions in due course.
Now, I think it's important for the investor also, let's say, to know that you are facing that stuff, because otherwise you would need so much upfront capital that would be really large, right?
Yeah, like each of these projects, each of these spokes will have capital attached to it, but it's not hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like the capital at Rosno is of the order of $100,000 or $100 million rather. At other projects, we don't know what it's going to be. It really depends what will be the method of us. In each case, we produce a concentrate at these sites and we transport the concentrate. That way we're transporting a higher grade product and we're transporting a product which is lower in volume. How we manage to upgrade our deposit in each case. At Rosno, it's flotation. It's relatively expensive in a sense, and that contributes to the capital. At some of these other projects, the upgrade method might be gravity, for example, which would be much cheaper. So as we develop the ideas and get through the work, we'll know much more about what the individual capital requirements for each of these projects is going to be. Just a word about the 2 shareholders. It's interesting to have 2 corporate shareholders in one company like this. Both of them are here, I think, for different reasons. Artemis Gold, they originally invested as Atlantic Gold before Atlantic was sold to St. Barbara. And they essentially invested because they looked at what we were doing and said, well, Atlantic was a project which was producing gold at one site, and they had 3 other spokes that they were going to develop in this kind of hub and spoke model. And so Stephen Dean, who was chair of Atlantic at the time, he liked what he saw when he looked at what we were doing, and he saw exactly the same potential to produce a similar type of development model. So they came in because they saw similarities in what we were doing simply, and they saw value in that, and they're now a very, very large shareholder. Dundee are probably there for slightly different reasons. I can't say specifically what drove their investment, but we're in Bulgaria together with Dundee. We have resources, they have resources. Like maybe some of this all fits together at some point. We don't know, and we don't know exactly what Dundee's strategy is going to be. But in the short term, having them as a shareholder in the country is hugely helpful to us. We can leverage some value off their experience over the years. They've managed to permit 2 mines in the country, and they're producing and they're making lots of money. And having a partner like that right next door is just hugely helpful for us. This is just a brief look at the projects that we are looking at. These are, if you look at our news releases and our disclosure, you'll see the names of these 4 projects coming up over and over again, and these have been the focus. Rosno is the most advanced, Makedonci, Obichnik, and Neglika. We're now advancing and bringing them along behind as well. We're also in the process of applying for more ground. That's a process in Bulgaria that takes some time, but we've been in the system for some time. So we hope that through the course of this year, we'll be adding more projects and more potential to our land holdings. And ultimately, we'd like to be one of the largest exploration landholders in Bulgaria. We think Bulgaria itself represents a huge opportunity. It's in the Tethyan belt. It's in a belt that's known to contain lots of gold and base metal deposits. But there's not that many TSX listed or Canadian companies actually working here. Dundee are the main one. We're there as well, and we're advancing along very nicely. There's a few other companies there too, but this is a huge opportunity for us. There's lots of ground to be taken. There's lots of projects to be looked at, and we want to acquire and secure as much of this ground as we possibly can, so that we have a healthy pipeline of projects moving forward. Mm-hmm. On this map, you can also see the Ada Tepe mine, which sits kind of midway at the scale between Rosno and Obichnik. And as I mentioned, it's about 20 kilometers as the crow flies from Rosno. And then to the north, the Chelopech mine, which is in the same belt as our Iglika project as well. So.
Mm-hmm. If I look at this beautiful picture here, a photo of Rosno, it looks a little bit like in the Black Forest, in Germany, and which is a beautiful area. And if I look at Ada Tepe below, also the same thing, but a beautiful mine, and it looks to me like fantastic infrastructure. So what is the situation with the infrastructure for Rosno? The same as good, meaning do you have grid access? I think water shouldn't be an issue. What's about roads and stuff?
Yeah, being in the European Union is always a pleasure and a joy. There's a lovely paved road that goes to within 2 kilometers of Rosno. It was built and funded by the EU. Bulgaria, like a lot of countries in these areas, suffers a little bit from depopulation in rural areas. And so the EU has put a lot of money and time into infrastructure in these areas to try and encourage people back into the rural environment. So that's why we've got a paved road that leads all the way to Rosno. We're about 20 kilometers away from hydroelectric power. So we will have to build a certain amount of infrastructure to connect to that power, but it's there and it's available to us. The road network's excellent. Water supply appears to be not a problem. In our pre-feasibility study at Rosno, we've defined where we'll get water and how it will be used and recycled within the project. So it is a beautiful area. Ada Tepe it's difficult to tell from that photograph. Ada Tepe is quite close to the town of Krumovgrad, which is a fairly large town, maybe 20,000-30,000 people, I think. So that presented its own permitting challenges for Dundee at the time. When you're close to population, you tend to attract a lot of attention. In the case of Rosno, we're much further away. As you can see, there's no houses. There's very little population in this area. But that brings its own challenges. It's a pretty beautiful area, so we've got to tread very carefully, and we've been very careful in putting our pre-feasibility study together to absolutely minimize the footprint of the mine and to minimize the impact to the natural environment that we're operating in.
Mhm.
Bulgaria itself, as I just mentioned, is in the EU. This is a good place to be. The corporate tax rate here is 10%, which is excellent. The mining law is very, very good. I think it's globally competitive. When I look at the mining law in more established mining jurisdictions like Canada or South America, the mining law in Bulgaria compares very favorably, and it's constantly under review. The first mining law was put together and published, I think, around the mid-90s, and there's been several iterations since. Most recently, some adjustments were made last year. So with every iteration of the mining regulations, they get a little bit better. And today, we have mining regulations in Bulgaria that I'm happy to work within and that compare favorably with other jurisdictions as far as I'm concerned. Mining is about 5% of GDP in Bulgaria. That's going to grow for sure. There's a lot of projects coming online, and the country has a lot of people who are very well educated, mining people. In some cases, a lot of these mining people have spent a good deal of their career working outside of Bulgaria, but now that companies like Velocity are here, they're all coming back. We've got something like 35 employees in the country, and we've only got one person who's an expatriate. Everybody else is Bulgarian. So to be able to draw upon that kind of local resources is really, really fantastic for us.
That's great. So for you, it wouldn't be a problem then for the future if you open up like up to 4 mines to really get a trained workforce directly on the spot, right?
Yeah, I think you'll never find an entirely trained workforce, but you'll find enough people that you can train to work within your systems. And yeah, absolutely. I don't think we'll ever have a shortage of people. That's for sure.
Super.
The processing and plants itself is kind of interesting. It's owned and operated by our partner, Gurupsu. Gurupsu are a Bulgarian mining company, and they've been around in one form or another for a very, very long time, from the 1930s. They were initially a private company. They were later subsumed into the planned economy for many, many years. And during that time, this entire district was a base metal producing area. And they only looked for base metals. Nobody looked for gold. Nobody paid any attention to gold. And that's part of the opportunity here. We know, and everyone in Bulgaria knows, that there's gold in this region, but the planned economy defined at the time that this was a base metal producing area. So the photograph you see, the black and white photograph on this slide, is Gurupsu's very large base metal flotation plant from, I guess, sometime in the 50s or the 60s. And the color photograph at the bottom is the ultra modern CIL plant that Gurupsu built approximately 10 years ago. And this is a world-class facility. Gurupsu are operating it to a very, very high standard. They're winning environmental awards in Bulgaria for the way in which they're operating this plant. And it's a truly remarkable plant. It's really, really great. It's just exactly what we need. And to the extent that we can fill this with ore, we'll be able to utilize this plant for many years to come. This map just zooms in on part of southeastern Bulgaria, and it's really just to give you a flavor of the number of projects that we're working on at any point in time. And with each of these bars, I've tried to represent a little bit just how advanced some of these projects are relative to one another. So Rohstoff-TV is at a pre-feasibility study, so it's getting into be kind of bright pink colors and getting towards the point where we'd be permitting an operation. The other projects are coming along behind and moving towards resources and moving then from there into expanding those resources and getting to higher levels of study. So there's a lot of opportunities here. What you do not see on the map is all of the projects that we're applying for and the projects that we hope will ultimately, some or all of those will be issued to us. So as time progresses and as we get through this year, we hope to be adding more of these symbols to the map and just generally growing our story. Just to speak very briefly about Rohstoff-TV, pre-feasibility study is done. We're at a point now of trying to expand this project. So we've got a baseline of advanced studies that gives us $123 million after-tax NPV. We've got a really healthy after-tax IRR. We've got what I believe are relatively low all-in sustaining costs. I hope that we can work on those even more as we get to feasibility study. And ultimately, we've got a mine that looks at producing 465,000 ounces at this point in time. The life of mine ounce production, 465 is mined, 368,000 actually produced, which is about 60,000 ounces of steady state production per year.
Where do you see, let's say now the time frame? I mean, pre-feasibility is quite advanced, so we are then talking probably about a bankable feasibility for the project financing. I see here $95 million total estimated capital cost. That is not really that much for 60,000 ounces of gold, steady state production. Where do you see, let's say, the path going into production? Is it like 2 years, 3 years from here?
So at the point where we got to the end of the pre-feasibility study, we sat back and looked at this project and we said, okay, we've got a 7-year mine life. We've got this many ounces. What do we want to do next? And what do we want to do before we take the step of going to a feasibility study? And what we see here is an opportunity to add ounces in short order during 2021 and to take those additional ounces into a feasibility study. And that's absolutely our focus this year. Our target internally, and I'll stress that it's a target and by no means a guarantee, but our target is to add 250,000 ounces to this story if we can do that. That would essentially take the project to approximately an 11-year mine life from 7 years. That gets you into the territory where, as you go to raise finance for your mining operation, you can do so on much more favorable terms because you've got a longer mine life, and that's where we want to go. So this year is 100% focused on getting to. We'll get to wherever we get to. That's our target. That's where we hope we can get to. Once we reach that and we know where we stand, then we'll move immediately into the feasibility study. At the same time, we're working through environmental studies, we're getting through EIA reports and so forth. And we're very advanced in that process. We've been in the process of collecting baseline environmental data and more recently getting into more detailed work, but we've been doing that almost from day one. So for a company that's at pre-feasibility stage, we're pretty advanced on the environmental side. So from the decision that we take to move into the feasibility and moving at the same time through the permitting, we're probably in the 2 to 3 year stage in terms of getting this thing into production. And that's perfectly reasonable and it's pretty fast.
And I could imagine this would finance then also all the other 3 projects to bring them into production, I could imagine.
It will contribute to it, yeah. Like we would want to be bringing these things online relatively quickly, not all at once, for sure. Rosno would be first, but in the next 12 to 18 months after Rosno, we'd want to see something else coming online and working through that. So yes, absolutely, all of the capital and all of the revenue starts to feed into this cycle to the point where we end up at this higher revenue and a higher level of production.
Fantastic.
The exploration upside, like why it's a bold for me to make a statement that we think we can turn a 7-year mine life into an 11-year mine life, but that is our target, and it's based on pretty good science. We have Rosno outlined on the map here. There's a red line on there, which is basically the pre-feasibility pit. This map's a little bit out of date, but what you see on this map is a number of other targets defined by soil anomalies. If I'd had a chance to update this, I would be able to add some more work that we've done. So we've got a whole series of targets surrounding this, and we are just systematically going through and drill testing those this year. And that's where we think we can find the additional ounces. And if you look at the one that's furthest away there, Tumbata, let's say that's about 4 kilometers away from Rosno. So you can truck run-of-mine material from there and you take it all the way to Rosno and use the facilities that you're already planning to build at Rosno. So you're not looking at any major additional capital to bring something like that online. You're just simply, you're looking at capital to put pits and plant into that pit, and that's really about it. You don't really have anything else to deal with. So adding these ounces is tremendous value and real economic meaning for the project. I'll just touch on one more. This is related to a news release that we put out this week, and this is connected to our Iglika project, which is the one that we acquired this year. And this is just touching on one very small portion of what we've been doing here, but this is looking generally at the eastern portion of the license area. We've been doing soil sampling, rock sampling, and lots of geophysics. And we've defined lots of near surface drill targets for gold, and we've defined a number of deeper geophysical targets that are under recent cover, so they're not exposed at surface. We believe those targets are a mixture of gold epithermal targets and porphyry copper gold targets. Very, very interesting stuff. This area is massively unusual for Bulgaria in the sense that what you're looking at on this map has never been drilled. And that's unusual because during the planned economy, the Bulgarian state did a very, very good job with their geological and mining workforce. They did a good job of going and drilling and testing projects, which is why many of the projects we look at have already got some gold mineralization in drill holes. And it's a really good start for us. But this one, not so much. This one's had nothing. And so it was surprising to us. Like, we were able to go in and look at soil geochemistry. It's the normal first step that we take. And we defined some areas of soil anomalies. And we go, oh, that's very interesting. And then we started to sample systematically the outcrop at surface. And the outcrop is limited, but everything that we could find, we took samples, and we took samples basically across 1 meter, just chipping away at the rock, trying to be as representative as possible. And you see the kind of numbers that we're getting here, up to 56 grams per ton. That I assume is going to be somewhat unusual, but there's lots of high-grade samples in here. And so this is rapidly becoming a drill target, and it's time for the drill rigs to come in. It's time to test. And when we drill holes here, if we get these kind of grades over any significant thickness, we'll have a project very, very quickly. So we're going through the drill permitting process right now. I hope we'll be able to put some drill rigs here probably in early May is probably a reasonable estimate. Certainly May sometime. We hope to have rigs on here, and shareholders will start to see results coming out from this project and from other projects in Niglika. We've got a lot of targets. It's completely beyond the scope of this kind of presentation, short conversation with yourself to talk about all of these things, but we've got lots of targets here, and we're really excited about this project.
How much money do you want to spend on that this year then?
Our initial budget was for about 6,000 meters, but we have contingent meters as well. So if we're successful with the first meters that we drill, we'll be adding more meters, and if necessary, we can divert meters from other projects. Like our total approved budget for the year is about 50,000 meters. About 30,000 of that is meters that we refer to as committed, and about 20,000 of it is contingent, which we'll release if we're successful, which I hope that we will be. So this is a big year for us. This is, 50,000 meters is more drilling in 1 year than we have previously done in the last 3.5 years. And we've been a pretty active drilling company, but yeah, we're really trying to ramp up this year, and we're really trying to understand what kind of potential we're looking at in this pipeline of projects.
How much is the average cost for a drill meter?
Average cost for the actual drilling is about 130, 140 meters. By the time you add in assays, and people, and everything else, it's about $230 per meter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's okay. relatively cheap in global terms.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I won't go into everything here. This is our management team and our board. I just draw your attention to Stephen Dean, who's chairman of Artemis and founder of Artemis, who sits on our board as a nominee of Artemis, as a large shareholder, our largest shareholder. We don't currently have a nominee from Dundee Precious Metals. Dundee invested at 9.9%. In order to get a nomination for a board seat, they have to get themselves to 15%. So that would involve them acquiring on the market about another 7 million shares. Mm-hmm. They also recently got a little bit diluted by Artemis's conversion of convertible debentures. So actually, to get to 15, probably more like 9 million shares. So if Dundee make a decision in the future that they need or want to have a nomination on the board, then the primary method by which they would be able to do so would be buying in the market, which is something that we would obviously welcome. It's always good to have active buyers in your market. Mm-hmm. And this is just the capital structure. As I mentioned, Artemis are at 32. Management is basically four of us that founded the company, and we still have 18% of shares today. Dundee currently today is sitting at about 8.5%. We have a high net worth in the United States who has about 12%, and then a relatively small float of around 27, 28%.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of analyst coverage, if anybody wants to pick up somebody else's view of the world, Beacon have been a great supporter of us. They've been covering the company for about 2.5 years. Haywood picked up coverage probably almost a year ago now, and also very actively covering the company and regularly updating their coverage as well. So both of those organizations provide very good perspective on the company and wherever they think that we're going. Watch lists and notes, lots of other institutions are generally picking up on our news releases and passing comment as well. So there's plenty out there.
Mm-hmm. What price target has Beacon and Haywood? Can you say that for the stock?
I'm not sure if I can say that, so I won't.
Okay, well, it's public knowledge, but okay.
Yeah,
because they normally publish that.
I can't remember the specific number, so I don't want to get it wrong.
Okay, good. No problem. We can look that up later. If I look now, the last private placement was $8.9 million. So what is now cash in the bank? Because if I do a brief calculation, 30,000 meters times $200 drilling is $6 million. And so what is in the bank? Meaning, are you financed for the exploration this year?
Yeah, we are. Your calculations are just a little oversimplified. We do a lot of other exploration, which costs money as well, the geophysics, geochemistry, etc. But yeah, we basically in the bank we got about $9 million cash right now. We're funded through this very aggressive year of exploration, and we have no cash needs essentially. So yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah, that's super. No, I think this is really important for your shareholders, but also for possible future investors. Because if you are financed, you are not under pressure, and then hopefully you deliver again fantastic results. I mean, what you have showed us here with those 56 grams and 12 grams and 8 grams, this is outstanding at this Voden target. And I could imagine that your share price moves more to the north than to the south when you bring very good results, right? And then it's much easier for next year to get financing again. I think it's a big advantage.
Yeah, and the stock has done fine over the last little while. Like it's been a tough market for a lot of people over the last 2 or 3 months, and a lot of the gold companies, mid-tier or junior, have lost quite a bit of value. We really haven't. We've been sitting between 45 and 50 cents for many months, and we haven't really come under price pressure. So yeah, we hope that we can maintain that stability, and then feeding really good results into the market. Hopefully we can see some significant appreciation through the rest of the year.
Fantastic. Super. Anything you want to add?
Not really, no. I think that's an overview, and I probably talked enough, so let's leave it there.
Yeah, fantastic, super. Keith, thank you very much. A very interesting presentation, I must say. I'm really convinced I will have a much closer look to your company, do some more due diligence. But also I must say Bulgaria is a very interesting place and really heating up through the European Union, and also maybe not to forget through those financing packages the European Union has brought on the start through COVID. I think there might be another push in Bulgaria because they're also getting money, of course, and so that's quite positive for you. Great. Yeah, so from my side, I'm also fine. Thank you very much, Keith. Great presentation, and wish you all the best. And we look forward really to get some good drill results then from you.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was the interview presentation with Velocity Minerals and Keith Henderson, the CEO. And you heard it. There is a real lot upside in Bulgaria here, and I like the approach that you really can do like 4 mines all together with Rosno as the most advanced in the pre-feasibility stage, and maybe 2 to 3 years from here could be already in production, which would then contribute also to the development of the next possible mines. I like the hub and spoke strategy, and also those last drill results, they are really, really positive. And what is really important, this is why I emphasized it, the company has the money in the bank for this year to really deliver 30, maybe to up to 50,000 meters of drilling, and with good results. And also I see a much better precious metal market in the second half of the year. I could imagine there is a lot of upside in the share price. I would suggest you check out the company. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Switzerland.